Coming up, families and financial education and archaeological evidence reveals ancient footprints. And an ASU Navajo student shoots for the stars. I'm Mark Trahant. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is a proud supporter of Indian Country Today. Students at Cronkite News and Gaylord College at the University of Oklahoma cover Indigenous communities together. This important work is distributed by more than 100 news organizations. This collaboration provides a much-needed boost to coverage of Native American communities nationwide. Learn more at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Trahant. Aaliyah Chavez is away. Over the weekend, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt warned tribal nations not to create abortion safe havens. During a taping of Fox News Sunday, Stitt said that he is monitoring the situation if Roe v. Wade is overturned. On May 2nd, the state passed into law a total ban on abortions after 6 weeks. That law would go into effect immediately if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Stitt brought up the abortion scenario while he was discussing a 2020 Supreme Court ruling, McGirt v. Oklahoma, a decision that affirmed tribal sovereignty in criminal law. Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. responded to Stitt, saying in part, speculating on what tribes should do based on a leaked U.S. Supreme Court draft decision is irresponsible. Just as irresponsible is the governor of Oklahoma and his disguised media campaign, which is really meant to attack tribes and our sovereignty. Chief Hoskin says his nation is currently focused on making sure that McGirt is carried out fairly, including the expansion of the tribe's criminal justice system to protect citizens living within its territory. More lands are becoming available to eligible Alaska Native Vietnam-era veterans in the form of allotments. The Bureau of Land Management is taking steps to free up 20 million acres for vets. ICT's Jacqueline Estes has this report.
Veteran Jim LaBelle, who is Inupiaq, is from northwest Alaska, but he chose land 600 miles from his homelands and 260 miles from where he lives in Anchorage.
I really didn't feel very good about selecting lands there because it's not my traditional homelands. But I thought that was the only choice we had.
He's looking forward to seeing the new lands that will become available. Chuck Katas Plinkett has been helping his brothers and other veterans through the process. He said the land that had been available is virtually inaccessible. Katas said another problem he'd like to see get fixed is the length of time it takes to get an application processed.
It is just frustrating no matter which way you turn. So frustrating that of the 15, 20 individuals that I work with, 2 or 3 of them want to continue working on the application. And every single one of the other ones said, forget it.
Joe Sanungatuk, who is also a Inupiaq, is 85 years old. He said he's not expecting to be able to use the land himself.
I will use it as an opportunity to select my grandkids' names and put them on there when it comes time for them to be my inheritors.
Because the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act of 1971 revoked the Native Allotment Act, thousands of Vietnam-era veterans were not able to file for allotments while serving in the military, which is why this process is all the more important now. In Anchorage, Alaska, Jacqueline Estes for ICT News.
The Gila River Resorts and Casinos in Arizona announced that its guests have donated nearly $174,000 to area nonprofits. Everyone was able to participate in the Every Cares kiosk program at 3 of the nation's casinos. The 4 organizations that were presented checks last week focused on children in many ways. The Homeless Youth Connection will use $50,000 in donations to continue its mission to support the graduation efforts of unhoused youth. Gila River Resorts and Casinos was the first gaming enterprise in Arizona to launch this unique charitable giving application October 20th, 19. This month, 4 new nonprofits were added to the kiosk program. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, Joe Watkins fills us in on his new film, Ice Age Footprints. But first, we have more on how you and your family can become masters of money management. It's a good idea to set spending and saving goals, but how do you get started? The Oklahoma Native Assets Coalition can help. Tribal citizens across the country can learn about money management. Karen Edwards is the manager of the Native Bank ON and serves as a financial coach with the Oklahoma Native Assets Coalition program. It provides training for organizations, coaches, and individual tribal members to know more about their money options. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Halito.
So tell us how this program works.
Well, ONAC's a 21-year-old Native-led nonprofit that helps American Indian and Alaska Native tribes to develop and implement asset building programs. And we've always known that an important component of that would be financial education, and we deliver that in a few different ways. We also celebrate all the many financial education programs that tribes and tribally led nonprofits offer out there. So we tried to design a personal financial coaching program that would complement all the existing programs. And so the way it works is we put the information out through our media channels, our email and Facebook, and then interested tribes and tribal entities and interested individuals can come onto our website. They can fill out a registration form online, and then we contact them individually and set up a coaching session, which usually lasts about an hour. It's by phone or teleconference. And this coaching session focuses on personal management, budgeting, financial counseling, credit counseling. And like I said, this is a kind of a one-time session, but ONAC also offers follow-up coaching for people who want to go beyond just the budget and the credit counseling into preparing themselves for home ownership or business ownership or higher financial education.
It's interesting, just last week, the Congress Joint Economic Committee came out with a report, and it said one of the key factors in Native Americans' economy is the lack of wealth building. And what you're doing is really getting people designing a wealth building program.
Yes, we've had very, very enthusiastic participation so far. People are really hungry for this, and mostly because when they go out to get a loan for a house, a loan for a car, even things like their insurance payments and other services, they find out that they either don't have a credit score or they have a very low credit score, and so they end up paying an enormous amount of interest, which eats up any kind of wealth building that you might do. It eats into the money you might be saving. So they're very appreciative to find out about those things, to find out how they can either establish a credit score or increase their credit score, and they're willing to do the work. It's been very gratifying to talk to people who are just so ready to get into this. And we've had 341 people register so far from 100 tribes from 34 states.
Should people be monitoring their credit scores? Is this something they should know pretty readily?
Yes, we encourage that. anyone can get a free credit report from myannualcreditreport.com. They can get a free credit report right now during COVID. All 3 of the financial credit bureaus are offering free reports monthly, so that people can kind of keep on track during the economic downturn. And it's a very simple thing to do. We explain to them, it's just a click online. It walks you through it, and you can get the credit report. You can't save it, but you can print it out. And then you can see if there's any discrepancies. You can also see what the credit report, what your creditors that you have, any that you have, are saying about the way you take care of your credit. And that's very important in case there are discrepancies or things that you need to dispute.
The physicist Albert Einstein said the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest, and that can either work for you or against you.
That's right. That's right. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. Well, it's like, well, I don't understand how I'd have a credit report. I don't have any credit. And I said, well, that's what your credit report's going to show, that you don't have any credit. And the reason you might have a low score might be that you don't have credit. It's reporting on the credit that you have. And it's also kind of a shock to a lot of people that they have to have credit to get credit. But it's a financial reality. So we help people walk through that. We help them get things like credit builder loans or credit cards that are secured and just build your credit without you getting caught in a financial trap.
The other side of that equation, though, is building savings. How do you get people either doing that or investments?
Well, that's a good question. During our budgeting process, what we encourage is for people to make a very realistic budget. Everything you spend, it all comes down to money in, money out. So the expenses you have compared to the income you have coming in. So when people begin to realize how much money may be going out that doesn't need to be going out, then they can start thinking in terms of saving that. But ONAC also has some programs for children's savings accounts, programs for emergency savings accounts that seed some of those savings accounts. So we help them initially open one and actually put money into one.
That's really great advice. Thank you so much, Karen Edwards.
You're welcome.
The PBS science series, NOVA, announced a 1-hour documentary called Ice Age Footprints. The film follows archaeologists as they investigate remarkable ancient footprints found in White Sands National Park, New Mexico. For the first time, scientists date the footprints, and if confirmed, the results would indicate that humans were present in North America much earlier than previously thought by archaeologists. Joe Watkins is a Choctaw citizen and one of the archaeologists featured in the films. He joins us now. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here.
Let's take a sneak peek of the film.
Joining me are Joe Watkins, an archaeologist and member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and Kim Charlie from the Pueblo of Acoma in New Mexico. They want to see the prints for themselves and learn more about the people who once walked across this landscape.
We have this tie where us Native Americans have been here for a very long time. And I believe that, I really believe that. And that ties back into, our migration stories where we evolved somewhere, but we don't specifically know where. These are stories that we believe in our hearts as tribes, pueblos, that we take, that we hold sacred to us. So when we come back to these areas and we find evidence of footprints of our thousands of great ancestors, we just kind of like, it's amazing. So we did exist here.
The tribes talk about going way back. We all talk about having been here forever. We've never been anywhere else. We have the evidence. It really does put our feet prints firmly into the past here in North America. These are our relatives. We've been here since time immemorial, and hopefully we'll continue on.
Tell us more about the film.
the idea that human footprints can be preserved over time is just remarkable to me. We found the interactions between humans from perhaps 21 to 23,000 years ago with giant megafauna, huge animals of the Pleistocene. That was so intriguing to me to recognize that these small human populations interacted with mammoth, giant ground sloths, perhaps even saber-toothed cats, direwolves. Seeing the footprints really brought it closer to me, recognizing that, of course, as a child, I've played in the mud and didn't think that maybe 20,000 years from now, my footprints would be investigated by archeologists and other people. So it really brought very much closer to me the idea of humans in the past. We see children's footprints interacting with adults. We see children's footprints splashing in mud, it's playing around. It's something that we rarely see in the past as any evidence of youth, of children. And so to me, it's a remarkable insight into some of the events that humans would have been encountering 20,000 years ago.
There's just so much here to unpack, but one of the things that intrigues me is this arc of 20,000 years of history and how connected we all are to it.
I agree with you. It's one of the things that I really was honored to be a part of, because to think that as humans, we moved into this, the Western Hemisphere, anywhere from 20 to 25,000 years ago. So what we are seeing are glimpses of some of the very first people to actually walk across this landscape, much earlier, 5 to 6,000 years earlier than archaeologists have thought about in the past.
In so much of our history, we think of North America in terms of 200 or 300 years. And this really puts it in perspective that this history is much longer and really remains relevant today.
It certainly is very relevant today, because this migration into this area was one of the last great migrations of human populations. I used to tell my students that until we colonize another planet, this is going to be the last great migration of humans across a relatively unknown landscape at the time. It gives us the ideas of thinking maybe 10,000 generations back, people were just moving into this area, learning which plants they could eat, which animals they could hunt, and which animals probably would be hunting them. So in my mind, it's a great mystery story. It's a great history story that tells us how much we have learned and how much we still have left to learn about our early ancestors here in North America.
Speaking of how much we have left to learn, so many of these stories involve crises that we're facing today, say climate change.
Certainly, they really do. And they can give us some insights into perhaps how we can deal with the climate change. As archaeologists, we recognized that about 1250 AD to 1350 AD, what is now the United States experienced a very great cool down called the Little Ice Age. And we see how some human populations reacted and possibly went to war to try to get foodstuffs. We see how other populations have migrated out of an area that had been had fed them very well, moved down to along rivers. So we see the ways that humans interact based on climate. And sometimes it's very good stories, and sometimes it's a little bit scary to see how they interacted with other populations.
What's the most important thing for people to take away from this film?
I think it's very important for people to realize that humans have been here 5,000 years earlier than previously expected, that American Indians, people who recognize that our ancestors have been here forever, realize that time is so fluid. The way we count time today really didn't matter 20,000 years ago. I don't believe there was anything such as a Monday, a Wednesday, or a Friday, that it was an arc, that people got up, they enjoyed themselves, they hunted when necessary, and they interacted with each other. I think after 2 years of living in lockdown and interacting with Zoom, I think it's very important that we realize that humans are very social animals and that we really need to be socializing with each other just to continue the stories and to continue remembering the history is who we have been, but that we can rewrite the story of who we will be.
Watkins, thank you. When can we see this film?
It's supposed to air on Wednesday, May 25th. It'll be on local PBS stations. And so I would suggest that everyone look at their local PBS channel and write it on their calendar.
Thank you so much.
Quite welcome. Thank you for having me.
It's graduation time in many communities across the country. Last year, Kiara Charlie's graduation meant leaving home to pursue an interest in astrophysics. Named a Flynn Scholar at Arizona State University, it meant her family could afford tuition. ASU News has this report.
I've always kind of been interested in space, and I know in Flagstaff, where my mom comes from, my aunt, uncle, and also my grandpa used to take me up to Lowell Observatory. Sometimes we do our ceremonies at night, and so when I'm outside, without the lights here, you can really see a lot of the stars and the constellations out. They're always discussing the constellations, their creation, and also their significance of how they can guide you. Family time is basically when all of us are together. It could be whether we're at school together, whether we're going to town, or even when we're doing stuff at home, taking care of the animals, and just, I guess, having that sense of family around you where you probably have an aunt, a cousin, or a younger brother just all around the house or somewhere, and just being around them, knowing that they have your support and that they're always there for you.
Basketball, hacky sack, volleyball. We play with the soccer. She helps me with my homework and she plays with me outside.
We're very close. We listen to the same kinds of music and we like to play with each other outside. We just feel happy that she's going to study something hardly anybody ever studies.
Yeah, very happy what she's doing, what she wants, her goals to reach. She wants to be on top of everything.
Her interests are just so different that it makes it hard sometimes. And even as her parents, sometimes it's hard because she's like really into explaining something and I'm just like, I don't even know what you're talking about, and she gets frustrated. And so I'm hoping college is the place.
She's always quiet, and I know she's thinking in her head about something special and an important thing. I always think she's a special granddaughter I ever had.
You see the houses? The Anasazi ones in the canyon? They're so small.
What was it about academia and studies? What is it about that you like?
I guess pure curiosity and wanting to know more about not only myself and my culture, but also the world around me, and also even beyond that into the planetary system, and just finding more and more to learn about, and also trying to piece them together and figure out where they overlap or even how they interlock and how they can relate to each other.
I'm really proud of her. I mean, she's a really good individual. She's proud of who she is, which is, I mean, the most important part that you need of yourself.
Going to college, they won't always be right next to me, and so it's kind of dealing with like a different kind of support system, finding a different group of peers or even teachers and mentors over there instead of relying solely on my family over here. I have my traditional outfit on, so I have the wraparound moccasins, then I have a tiered skirt, my sash belt, and then my poncho belt, and then a swash blossom necklace, a pin, my rings, my bracelets, and then they put my hair up in a bun.
I want her to, excel in everything that she dreams of. She's already almost there, I would say.
Yeah, it's a special night for her. I'm going to pray for her again. I know that her sister and her baby brother is going the same way too. They can be like her.
We're all gonna go in, and then everyone gets situated, and then they'll have the fire going, and then everyone else will probably be praying along for similar things, but also for themselves and their own friends, and also to help them in whatever they want to do and continue doing.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. Read more about Kiara Charlie at IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I'm Mark Trahant.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.